Croeso, hello, welcome to RobRyanRed, the Wrexham podcast brought to you by Red 10 People Development. Thank you very much, first of all, to all of you who listened to our Luke Young chat last week. We really enjoyed having that open and honest discussion with the former Wrexham captain. Also, good luck to him. He's just signed for Cheltenham Town. Again, if you haven't already watched that, please do. If you're new around here for whatever reason, please leave a like and subscribe already. We will also have a competition coming up on today's podcast. So if you listen to this in audio format, maybe get over to YouTube if you want to win yourself a little bit of Wrexham memorabilia. Nath, how you doing? It's nice that we've got stuff to actually talk about this week.
Yeah, I was having to rub my eyes, mate, and just check that it was actual news that we were getting, because it was becoming the running joke, wasn't it, that nothing was happening. Everyone's seemingly back to work, so things are trickling through bit by bit, and we're recording this early on the Wednesday because, the day job duty calls, Rich. It's busy old time with the Euros, and so no doubt, who knows if there's something out for the rest of the day or the classic Thursday release of news, which they seem to love to do. So, yeah, things are ticking along. I'm doing well. How are you doing? You're wearing the Wrexham black kit. We're still waiting for the kit. I've heard that it's potential sponsor. Maybe I don't know what's going on. Something's holding it up, but we shall see. Fingers crossed we get a kit very, very soon.
Yeah, well, of course, pre-season's getting close as well, isn't it? And the idea will be to wear those new kits during pre-season and to have some of them on sale as well, ahead of the tour, if it's all possible. Yeah, I'm good, mate. Like you said, we're both Seinfeld fans, and it was turning into the show about nothing, RobRyanRed, wasn't it? Because every week we were just jabbering on, and I know we are right now, but we can get actually stuck into some news. So, Nath, I suppose the place to start is with the stadium latest. That is the bigger news that dropped this week coming from Wrexham. They released the statement earlier in the week giving some exciting updates, as they called him. They said they can confirm the extension of the temporary stand heading into next season, which will now accommodate approximately 3,000 supporters. The stand will be in place until the COP development officially begins. So, we're already so far behind on the COP development actually sort of getting underway. So until that is all ready to go and there's no more delays being foreseen, they're just going to keep the temporary stand there for as long as possible, get as many bums on seats, get as many Wrexham fans into the stadium as possible. Interesting as well, Nath, I know it's not been communicated, but last season, was it Sean Harvey said that Wrexham stood to lose, £250,000 or so by having a temporary stand in place? So interesting if that's also factored in with the 3,000 seats, or if we now break even by having it in place for the new campaign. I'm not sure on that one. That is kind of speculation, but I guess from a short-term point of view, it's good that we can have more supporters in the ground next season. But of course, there comes a point where we just need to look long-term and get the stadium sorted. Also, as well, Nate, part of the statement was that the club and Wrexham Council have reassessed the stadium development plans, particularly the new COP, to ensure they deliver the best possible fan experience, not just for matchday revenue, but by turning the stadium into this year-round sort of events hub and be able to have people coming in for networking, hospitality, of course, and conferencing and things like that. So the headline is temporary COP is here to stay for a little longer than we all envisaged. But also, Nath, the fact that the COP stand, when it does eventually get made permanent and goes under construction, might not be the one that we were first sold in those images.
Well, I mean, the headline is also that ourselves and Wrexham have very different definitions of exciting. But there you go. I think that was my headline takeaway. Multiple exciting updates, and I got to the end, and I was still scratching my head of what was exciting. What I also will say is credit to Rob and Ryan, because they were the ones pushing for a temporary COP. It was Sean, Harvey, and Humphrey to an extent that were very reticent to do it. I think Sean Harvey said in the documentary that it didn't make financial sense. And now you see that it's 3,000 seats for home fans, and it should alleviate many of the ticket problems. Had you taken that 2,500 or whatever it is right now away, then you would have been back to that period where there were lots of people scrambling for very few tickets in the other three stands, and lots of very unhappy people. I can understand. I'm in that membership boat myself. And also we had this week, didn't we? We posted the minutes for the last fan advisory board, the CAB club advisory board meeting, which apparently membership is great value for money. So again, I've maybe other people have a better definition of what the value is there. But there we go. I digress. On the stadium, I think they are completely redrawing the plans, Rich. And from what I gather, there might already be some impressions already done, not released, obviously. But my guess is that they're going to go bigger than what they originally planned. Maybe they thought things would have moved a bit quicker, and in the dock it was a big thing, wasn't it? That British bureaucracy and all that sort of thing, all the hold-ups that was really irritating Rob in particular. Maybe they've got to League One and thought, well, now they feel like, well, we've got up 2 levels quite quickly, and we're only 2 levels away from the Premier League, albeit 2 huge jumps, a massive jump to the Championship and then Everest to get to the Premier League. But maybe they've thought, no, we need to go bigger than originally planned. And there was one suggestion put to me that the new plan for the Cop is an even taller stand, even bigger stand. That realistically, I remember when the King and the Queen's Consort came to the racecourse, and there was like Rob and Queen's Consort Camilla was looking at a big piece of card that was on, what do you call it, an easel? I don't know what artists call it.
That's pretty. Yeah,
that's about right. Yeah, an easel. And anyway, it was on that, and the video was filmed from behind, so you couldn't see. We were looking at them, looking at it, if you know what I mean. So we couldn't see what was on it. But the way
I always thought it was that Vista print picture of Rob McElhenney topless.
Camilla just absolutely loving the Vista print. That's probably better than looking at some artistic drawings of a stadium, I'm sure, for her. But anyway, so the way like Rob seemed to be talking about it.
He's not a fan of yours.
The way you're putting me off my stride here. I'm trying to talk about a very serious issue of the stadium. And anyway, so the way he was talking about it, it definitely gave the impression that it was the lager stand was sort of next, and it was all going to be one kind of wrap around. It definitely gave the impression that it was not just going to be one massive Cop stand, and then that was going to be it. It definitely gave the feel that, okay, that's phase 1. This will be phase 2. I mean, when we spoke to Rob and Ryan, I said you were hot-footing around Japan at the time, but when we got to speak to them on here, they joked about putting apartments into the tech end. And obviously, that was a very funny joke and their sense of humor, but again, a sense to me that they're also looking at that, and it'll probably be the Mold Road, which is the most recent one, as the final piece of the puzzle. And again, limited scope there, given the road is right behind.
And also, when we spoke to Sean Harvey, he said that the long-term plan was for the tech end to become the away end again, because they're very constricted with how much building work they can do behind that, because it goes into the university car park. So essentially, the tech stand, they've almost used as much of the room as they can there. So it makes sense to just kind of have these slightly dilapidated stands used for the away fans, and then have the premium stuff in the Cop.
Rich, in that statement, though, it mentioned about potential purchase of land and all that sort of thing. And now we've had months and months of substations and phosphates and all that sort of good stuff. We don't need to go back over that.
Well, this is another point then, Nate, that I've seen discussed on social media. And I think that, this, again, I think this maybe splits the fan base. I'm not trying to pick sides and say one's better than the other. I'll give my opinion on it. But I've seen a lot of debate saying, well, why don't we just build a new stadium? Why don't we play out of town? Why don't we do York City and rip up the history and just go play in a retail park?
That'd be a disaster.
Well, yeah, for me, that's just not Wrexham Football Club anymore. And obviously, in that initial mission statement, we've heard, look, we want to play at the Racecourse Ground for as long as what was it, something like feasibly possible or something, or
it's something along those lines. It's like that wording.
There was some wording that worried us at the time, because it basically said we plan to play at the Racecourse as it is now for as long as we can, unless there's like serious implications over logistics and growth, etc. And for me, my concern is twofold. One, we desperately need the Cop to be sorted, so that's non-negotiable. Going for bigger plans on the Cop to me makes sense, because even just to get contractors on site and to work on it costs so much to get boots on the ground twice, that if you're going to upgrade the Cop, you might as well upgrade it now to its fullest potential. You might as well just get that over and done with, because even if the capacity soars in that stand, it'll bring the overall stadium up quite considerably, but maybe not too massive. My other concern is the two things. One, I would be absolutely disgusted if we ever left the Racecourse Ground as it is now. That is just such an integral part of our history. And the other part for me is, do you have any slight concerns that we could just become a Darlington and build the stadium too big, and then one day just be playing in a bit of a bowl? Or do you think that there is enough demand now and that we'll move at such a steady pace that the demand will always meet the supply?
Well, I mean, if I knew the answer to that, I probably should be on the stadium project. That if I could answer that for the club, I don't know. It ultimately, right now, you'd say yes because it's very popular, and they are the club that is incredibly popular with non-football fans and new fans to the sport, a gateway to the sport for many people through the documentary and such. But again, how much longer does the documentary last? In my opinion, it might get one more season, might get season 4, and then if you finish 10th or 12th in League One, can you do it again? I don't know the answer to that. And then do you fall out of public consciousness? It's very tricky to say. Right now, you would say that its building blocks are good and you would be able to meet a demand. But I might have said this before, I always look at Juventus and the fact that when I went there, they told me that they stuck with their stadium. I think it's about 45,000. Now they're the biggest team in Italy and Champions League most seasons and all that sort of thing. Best players in the world when they've had like Ronaldo and such. And yet they stuck at 45 because they wanted it to be sold out every week rather than have a say 60,000 stadium which they couldn't fill or 75,000 stadium which they couldn't fill. And that's drawn huge debate in Italy about whether that's right. With
That's
Wrexham,
also part of the excitement about Wrexham, isn't it? Because it does feel like a golden ticket now. And although obviously you want to be able to have more fans through the doors, and right now the attendance, levels are capped at a level that is below what we need to be getting. If we did just have, sort of say a 20,000, maybe just shy of 20,000 sellout capacity every week, that's what you want. You want it to feel like it's a golden ticket every time you go to the racecourse. You don't want it just to become another event.
Rich, I see what you mean, but that doesn't make business sense. If you know there's huge demand waiting to go and waiting to buy shirts and waiting to spend hundreds in the mega store that they'll put into the cop. Well, that was in the original cop, and I'm sure will again. They'll go for a big shop where they can try and upsell as much as possible. That doesn't make sense. I get it. It feels nice if you can, very few people got into Willy Wonka's chocolate factory, but ultimately, if people were willing to pay for those
I was
golden
not
tickets,
expecting that.
if people were willing to pay for those tickets, I'm sure in the modern world they would be doing daily tours, and it wouldn't be so special to go there. So yeah, it's nice, and also it's like growing pains, Rich. It's always going to be difficult Wrexham going up through the leagues because you want to win, and that's your team. You want to win as much as possible, but winning comes at a cost. And we've covered Premier League football enough to know that things do change. I remember when Swansea made it up to the Premier League, I remember chatting to some of their fans, and they said that players would put on their headphones and carry their Louis Vuitton wash bags and wouldn't stop and wouldn't sign autographs that they would a year ago in the Championship. And when they got to the Premier League, it was different.
Don Vos had a Louis Vuitton pink rucksack. Do you remember
that? I don't remember that, but you were in the media team at the time, so you probably saw him a lot more than
he used to get a lot of stick every single game, Don Vos, because he had this bright pink. I swear it was Louis Vuitton rucksack that he brought to every single game. But so maybe it's not as bad as it seems. These designer brands at Wrexham, but you make a good point there, Nathan. From my point of view, I do think that it's such a tricky one because I know you and me personally get a lot of criticism about this because we're supposedly Man United fans who pretend we like Wrexham, but
that's it.
It's the same that that's what we get a lot on a day-to-day job. Is obviously Old Trafford at the moment. Their preference is to build an entirely new stadium, and it's the same sort of arguments about, well, if you're building a new stadium, you're taking away the heritage, or you're building a new legacy. It's on the same site, Old Trafford, so there would be a bit different there. But say if Wrexham ever did have to move out of town, it just wouldn't feel quite the same for me personally. I know maybe I don't want to put words in their mouth, but I feel like some North American fans would be more open to that because you get franchises there. Teams can just relocate overnight. New stadiums are built, and maybe there's less emphasis sometimes on the heritage.
I would still say that there is a reticence when teams get moved from one place to another. Maybe they just accept because it's huge money.
Dave, last week was the first time I've ever been to York, the city itself.
Very, very nice. Well, you and Phil Parkinson were there as well. He was there as well, picking out his Tesco meal deal. You saw that? Yeah.
Well, I've been to Booth and Crescent before. Went for that Gary Mills game where Leo Smith scored and Jordan White, but I've not been to their new stadium, which by all accounts is an absolute.
I have. I took my dad
disaster.
there. My dad doesn't normally go away. We went there, and you walk past. I think it's Hollywood Bowl outside, and there's a cinema. And we went. Tom O'Connor scored an overhead kick, and by the time we finished celebrating, York had equalised. So
yeah,
it was not great.
But do you know what I mean? I don't want to just, My worry long term is that Wrexham would become a team who play outside of Wrexham, have a big stadium that's a bit soulless. I mean, think about our
I,
trip to Milton Keynes. How horrible was that?
I,
Imagine if
I,
Wrexham played something like that. That would just
I
be,
don't, I
there'd
don't
be no
think,
appeal for me.
Rich. I don't think that'll happen. And maybe call me naive if you think. I really don't think that'll happen. I think that there'll be a lot of things that will change. Prices will go up. If Wrexham get the Premier League, there will be locals that can't afford the prices. That's what I would think would be the squeeze. But I don't see the club moving away from the racecourse. I
Yeah,
can see them redeveloping it, and the real battleground will be which land are they trying to buy? What can they get? How much can they actually develop it? Can you purchase land off the university? Because really, look behind the tech end. Can you go into that? Can you go up? What about the Lagerstand? Can you go back there? Can you get any of that land? The flats are obviously a massively contentious.
yeah. I mean, Nate's just lost his microphone there for anyone listening to the podcast. But I suppose the other point there is, if indeed Wrexham do get the cop stand built, and you have car parking underneath the new cop, or car parking, more car parking space within the cop, then you could theoretically lose some of that car park behind the Wrexham Lager stand and expand that way as well. So it's a really interesting one. I suppose, Nate, what we should do is ask you, the listeners, for your thoughts on stadium redevelopment. Would you ever object to Wrexham building a new stadium entirely? Would you object to a complete relocation? Like we said, this is just our opinions on it at the moment. We're not saying it is something that is going to happen, but I feel it is important to voice that we would particularly be very unhappy if that ever happened.
Right, Rich. Enough stadium chat because I'm sure that will rumble on and on and on for weeks, probably about as long as a couple take to build. But we did mention a giveaway. Now, kindly, the team at the Medalman, who big fan of their work, we've both got Rich a National League winners medal from that season. We also kindly this week got a runners-up medal. So what Luke Young received from last season, and what you can also have if you want. We are giving one away. If you see it there, can I hold it up? There you go, League Two, with the. I don't even know what would you call this. I don't even know what's the word. I don't know what it is.
Just
Ribbon.
a medal, isn't? Yeah, the
ribbon.
medal is a medal on a Sky Bet ribbon, so it looks like a
Sky Bet ribbon.
Yeah, it looks like the actual sort of accolade the players received for finishing second in League Two. You can win one of those by subscribing to us on YouTube, RobRyanRed. That's why we said if you listen to this on the audio version that the YouTube version might be a little bit better for the competition. And just comment on the video, this latest video you listen to now, telling us that you've subscribed, maybe even telling us what you think the plans for the stadium should be going forward, or any other subject that we discuss on today's podcast. We will announce the winner on next week's show. Maybe, Nate, we'll do the draw beforehand and then put it on social as well and contact you. So if you want to win your own Sky Bet League 2 Runners Up medal, which, doesn't sound like the main prize, but trust me, it is. Subscribe to us on YouTube, RobRyanRed, and comment on this episode in the comment section below. Nath, in terms of other news then, this one maybe didn't feel like so much of a surprise, but Stephen Fletcher has signed a new 1-year deal at Wrexham. I love the guy. I love the man. The question, I suppose, now is, where does he fit in next season? What choice striker is he going to be? And what does it mean for the other strikers we've got at the club? Because I think the consensus we've been pushing, and the club are pushing as well, is they still need another top-class striker for League One. But now we've got lots of them on our books, and it's going to be difficult to shift them as well.
Yes, so I put that out after the announcement that Stephen Fletcher re-signing means that Wrexham have 21 senior outfield players. You can register 22 in your squad. They've got 21. Obviously, they don't have to register players. We saw Anthony Ford was deregistered for the second half of the campaign. Callum McFadzean wasn't registered at the start of the campaign. I'm trying to think, was anyone else in that group of being unregistered, Rich? I can't remember, but I feel like there was a couple maybe as well, but Callum McFadzean definitely one of them. And so that's an option. But again, it's not great squad planning if you've got players that are all on fairly decent wages right now. No one's on the kind of peanuts that people like Mark Carrington was supposedly on many moons ago that would take a very, very normal wage to allow the rest of the squad to be built out. So Yes. So now that means Wrexham have in the striking department on Wednesday, the 19th of June, Wrexham have under contract Super Paul Mullin, Stephen Fletcher, Ollie Palmer, Jack Marriott, Billy Waters, Sam Dalby, and Jake Bickerstaff. That is 7 strikers on the books without signing one.
And we're saying we need another as well.
You want an 8th striker, Rich?
Preferably, yeah. I mean, from my point of view, I think I've said this many times, so apologies if it does sound a bit like a broken record. I want Paul Mullin to start every game alongside a new sort of target man striker. I then want Stephen Fletcher to be the backup to the target man striker, Jack Marriott to be the backup to Mullin. I would like Ollie Palmer to be the 5th choice striker if he's happy to take that role, which I don't think he would be.
No.
And then I say tear up Billy Waters' contract because he wasn't good enough in League Two for us or Doncaster. I would say Sam Dolby loan out for another season and Jake Bickerstaff loan out for another season.
Okay, so what I'll say on that is Jake Bickerstaff's under contract. He signed a multi-year extension, so I think he's under contract until 2027, I want to say. It's a multi-year contract. So yes, loaning him out makes sense for his development. But again, he turns 23 later this year. He's not a kid. He is at a point now where he needs to hit the ground running. And yes, he signed a multi-year extension, but Wrexham did send him to TST. So I think that was a little bit of a giveaway of where he is at. Ollie Palmer, I would be surprised if he was sort of very happy with being a 5th choice striker. I would be stunned by that.
I don't think he will be either.
I can't imagine that. Jack Marriott, he has got a year left on his deal, as has Sam Dalby. So you're saying loan out Sam Dalby. You're essentially doing what you did to Jake Hyde then, just to get him out of the building.
I just think it's difficult to move something. I think, like you said, the problem now is these players have every right to do a Jack Rodwell and say, look, I'm a League One football player on this wage. Why do I have to leave? You gave me the contract. I will see it through. So it just feels like the power is with the players rather than the club this summer in terms of the strikers department.
Rich, as well, as I always say, players get binned off by clubs all the time. For example, I'm sure Sam Dalby would like to stay, but if Wrexham decide that he's gone, I mean, Jake Hyde wanted to stay at Wrexham, and they turned around and said, we don't want you anymore. Pack your bags, go to Southend, where there was, what did he say on the podcast? No hot water or something with the showers when he went down there. So, he didn't have a choice. Wrexham were quick to bin him off. And they'll do that as they go up the ladders. You've got to evolve. Got rid of Luke Young and got rid of Ben Tozer and Aaron Hayden, and they're all finding new homes now. Jordan Tunnicliffe's another. Congratulations to him, by the way. He just got married. And so, players have every right. For example, if you're Billy Waters, who's on a decent wage, I'm led to believe, he's got every right. He's going to want every single penny that he's owed, and so he should. They offered him the contract, he signed it, and it's not necessarily his fault that he's not hit the heights or not good enough now in the eyes of many.
Do you think we've got enough firepower then at the club already with all those players to be very? Well, I guess that's the point. Where do you think that strike? Where do you think that strike force gets you in League One? Because I still think it's better than a lot of teams have. I would say it's sort of a mid-table at least.
Top half.
Strike half.
I'd say.
It's just if you want promotion, I think you'd need another striker on top of that again, because the caveat of last season is, of course, we didn't have Paul Mullin for a good chunk of it, and it took a while to get up to speed, and then we saw in the tail end how clutch he came when required again. So with fully fit Mullin for all the season, then you can maybe expect us to give it a real go. But
he'll be Rich. He'll be right up.
He'll be right even higher, aren't they?
And he'll be right up there. Yeah. He'll be right up there, Mullin.
But Nave, I suppose the other I'm not going to say caveat again. I will do. Maybe I will. To that is, he only played half a season in League One with Tranmere. So we've always talked about him having a point to prove. But what if we get promoted and our strikers, none of them sort of find their feet early on?
Well, I mean, Paul Mullin's under contract till 2027, so he'll be fine. I'm sure he's so at home. The system's really built around maximising his talents. It's really everybody else that's either out of contract. I mean, I think every other striker except for Bickerstaff and Mullin are out of contract in 2025. So you're entering the final year of those deals now. If you want any potential resale, you're looking this summer. They're not going to sell Jack Marriott. I'd be amazed. He's out of contract in 2025. It's a big season for him because can he establish himself as a partner for Mullin? Could it be a change where in pre-season they rip it up together?
M&Ms. I like it.
M&M and they rip it up, or is it that Marriott has to really take his opportunities when he gets 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there, And that's very hard to do. It's very hard to build any rhythm when he comes in for 15 minutes, maybe doesn't score, left out the next game, comes in the next game, gets 20 minutes, doesn't score again. It's very tricky to build momentum. Palmer entering the last year of his deal, and I would be surprised if a new one was forthcoming. I wouldn't expect him to be offered another one. Fletcher, I would say, takes the year and probably doesn't stay on again. I would imagine this is his final year. And then who we got there? Sam Dolby. I'd be amazed if he got another contract extension, another offer from Wrexham. So really, we're thinking, okay, we need one this summer. Next summer, you potentially got a whole new striking department. I know we don't want to sort of keep jumping ahead, but that's what you're looking at in terms of the landscape of the strikers. Is yes, we've got 7 now, but realistically, you could go into next season with, if you get one this summer, Mullin plus a new sign, and then your squad building, particularly up front, all over again.
Well, at least we've got something to talk about next summer, at least. So, yeah, if you want to stick along for that, then we could talk about strikers and RobRyanRed 2025. But it's an interesting one. Let us know as well in the comments below, or RobRyanRed@gmail.com, what you would do with the striking situation. Do you still think Wrexham need to sign another one this summer, or do you think we've got enough firepower to go into the new League One season with what we've got already? Transfer talk as well is sort of building up elsewhere. Wrexham yet to make a move. Of course, it was only 3 weeks ago or so that Phil Parkinson said there was nothing imminent. They're sort of doing their due diligence on a number of different targets right now. And again, as we've said so many times on this podcast, last summer, Evans and the Conqueror were right at the end of the window. So Wrexham will be holding their cards close to their chest and not making any sort of rushes into deals. They'll exactly see who is available. They, of course, were waiting for all the retained lists as well to get a real idea of who will be available. One player who has been linked with Wrexham in the past few days is Wales international Joe Morel. He has just been released by Portsmouth after failing to agree new terms, although John Mousinho, the Portsmouth manager, said that they are still in talks about a possible new deal there following their promotion to the Championship. Terms could theoretically be agreed. On Joe Morel, I know he's got somewhat of a mixed reputation given he's had some notable, or maybe notoriety with the Welsh national team. He maybe is not quite up to the standard to be starting for Wales every week, but is he up to the standard to be playing for Wrexham week in, week out? Would you like to see a player like him with international pedigree coming to the squad, and someone who is a younger profile to our more experienced players anyway? He's 27, Joe Morel?
I don't want to come on here and turn my nose up at an international football, and I've not particularly enjoyed watching him when he's played for Wales. To be honest, I've not been a big fan of his playing for the national team, but he should be more than good enough to be one of the best midfielders in League One. Really, in a squad surrounded by good players in terms of, we've got other good pros in McLean and Mullin and Lee and people like that, Andy Cannon. Joe Morel would be a fabulous signing, surely. And I can't hold my kind of views because of Wales against him. But what I would say, I don't know what your thoughts are, Rich. What do you think? Agent spin? Trying to, surely he doesn't want to leave Portsmouth. I think if Portsmouth wants him, which John Mousinho is definitely making the noises that they do, maybe not on the terms he was previously on, but you've just gone up, you've been promoted as champions, they still want you. Do you want to drop a division unless it's for longer deal or more money? I don't know. I think somebody might be trying to use Wrexham as a little bit of a bargaining chip.
That is exactly what I would say as well on this one. I do think that Joe Morel is a player and a profile of player that Wrexham would be naturally interested in, just because of his pedigree and the fact that we will be looking to sign some very good League One players, if not Championship players, this summer to raise the overall standards in our league. So Joe Morel ticks that box. But I sent some messages about this, and it does seem to be coming more so from his agency and from Portsmouth that, look, if the deal doesn't come, if new better terms aren't offered to Joe, then look, Wrexham have all this money, they might want to go get him. I do feel that it's being sort of amplified maybe a bit more from that point of view, and that his preference would be to stay at Portsmouth if he could, just because why would you not want to play for a championship team over a League One team. I don't think he's going to be saying, "Look, I'm a Wales international. I need to be playing in Wales." It just doesn't work like that.
Joe Morel's definitely going to sign on Thursday morning now, isn't he? When we've just said it's
Bring it
complete
on.
not.
Like I said, I do think he'd be a good addition to the side, and I suppose again, we don't want to get too sentimental here, but I miss the days of Wales internationals playing for Wrexham. And that is one of my, whenever Humphrey talks about dream signings and he says Nico Williams, I think he said sort of Harry Wilson in the past. I think he even said Endo at Liverpool once. Just these are the type of players he'd like to see.
Wataru Endo.
In a Wrexham shirt one day. But I would just, from my personal point of view, I would love to see a key Wales player playing for Wrexham. That'd be so lovely from my personal point of view. But of course, Wrexham aren't going to go out and buy players just because they've been in the Welsh setup. That's just not the way it happens. So Joe Morel is a player to keep an eye on, but like I said, I would still be somewhat surprised if he ended up at Wrexham. And yeah, anything else you want to touch on the transfer front, or?
It's. I feel like we just need to start jinxing the no transfer business and just say nothing's going to happen, and then hopefully things happen. I'm just really curious at the squad building because I still think you need a pair of centre backs. In my opinion, I still think you need another midfielder that can sort of play in a deeper line role, and I think you need a starting caliber forward, and you need a goalkeeper. It's curious to me on Arthur Okonkwo because I'm seeing all these championship teams sign up their number ones or supposed number ones, and we know as well that Arthur has interest from in Europe. So, and I don't know the ins and outs of those clubs of whether they've got their goalkeeper in for next season. But I do wonder if maybe he's overplayed his hand a little bit, and that might work in Wrexham's favour. I'm not 100% sure, but obviously Rob was in town for that transfer meeting, and obviously discussions about the COP as well, to really try and get the ball rolling. I'm just curious. The longer it goes on with a Okonkwo, the more I think the longer it goes on, the more I think Wrexham have got a better chance. I was previously the opposite, where the longer it went on, I thought, well, if he wanted to sign for Wrexham, he would. But actually, now the longer I've kind of changed my tune, the longer it goes on, the more I think, maybe he's kind of like overplayed his hand a little bit.
I'm exactly the same, where I think that you take a step back, you almost sort of play the game, as it were, and you wait for these big offers to come in. And then the offers do come in, they trickle in. A championship team says, look, you can be our second choice. Or a team in a foreign league maybe says you can play for us, but maybe there's less guarantee there of a route to stardom, really. And then the more he thinks about it, Arthur might be like, well, I've got such a good base here at Wrexham. I've loved by the fans. I already fit in. I already know the manager loves me and is not really at risk of leaving the club anytime soon. So why would I not stay? And in terms of building my brand, not that I think he's bothered about that whatsoever. It's as good a platform as any really he's going to get this summer, I think. And again, on the Okonkwo, I do think there'll be lots of agent hearsay and things like that, probably saying, look, all these teams want him, all these people want him. But the reality is, who's going to give him the guarantee? Who can guarantee him? And I mean guarantee him better than what he's got at Wrexham. I don't think there's any club really that can do that this summer in terms of playing time and the exposure you'll get. I really don't think there's going to be many other teams who can better those two things in a guaranteed offer. But my one little element of concern for this, Nathan, this comes fully from my own experience playing Football Manager, is that sometimes you can get too fixated on one player. And we all know Arthur is an amazing goalkeeper for this level. But this is what often happens to me. And this is why I'm dreadful at Football Manager, is I could become too fixated on Arthur, start going up with sort of a financial package, be solely focused on getting him, and then realise that for the same money, I could have got someone else who is maybe as good or could even be better. So I think that from both points of view, there will be no rush. I think even from Wrexham's point of view, while Arthur would be such a fantastic addition, there's also so much power from the club's point of view that, look, if you get a Okonkwo in League Two, we're not going to rush and just make sure he's the only option for us in League One. I think that regardless of what happens, they'll be looking at plenty of other candidates as well.
No doubt, but also you would say that if you did manage to get him on a permanent, you would say that both Arthur and Max would be appreciating assets, and eventually the club will need to become self-sufficient in, not to become a selling club, but anyone outside the Premier League anyone outside the Big Six, dare I say, has to sell their best players, and you don't want to have players run into expiry every time, and it's just costing you money. But I tell you what, I would love. We're talking about like dream signings, not necessarily dream signings, but dreams and realistic signings. I would absolutely love it if Wrexham could somehow get the deal for Louis Barry over the line, just so up front you could have Paul and Barry. I know that doesn't quite work because one's a first name, one's a surname, but you could have Paul and Barry up front for Wrexham. I know that Villa are asking for a king's ransom and Stockport are desperately pushing for that, but he again would be another player that would be worth, in my opinion, will be worth a fortune in a few years. And they're the type of players I'd like.
Was that a purposeful Chuckle Brothers reference?
Yes, mate, it was actually. Yeah,
Okay.
I was sitting on it for about 5 minutes, and I just thought I was waiting for the time to drop it in. I was losing time to get it in.
I hate to sour the mood, but it's just the Chuckle Brother nowadays. So
I know. But then Wrexham, Wrexham can bring it back, mate. Paul and Barry in attack. That's what I think. Get Paul and Barry, get Arthur in goal, and suddenly we'll all be feeling a bit different about. This
is an interesting segue because we're going to go on to another subject now, but this links into what I want to talk about anyway. So, little teaser coming up. Once again, very happy to say I've been asked to write the 442's Wrexham preview for the new season. I've done that the last 2 campaigns, where basically they send through a bucket load of questions about where I think Wrexham will sort of fare next season, how that will all work. They asked me, amongst the questions, number 1, which opposition player would I like us to sign the most? I've said Louis Barry, because he absolutely destroyed us in that game last season. The other question, this is one of the ones I wanted to throw to you, Nathan, maybe to the listeners as well. I was asked to name Wrexham's most underrated player heading into the new season. I've already made my selection, but I want to know who would you put down for that?
That is a good one. Who do I think is Wrexham's most underrated player? I'm gonna go. Yeah, because so many of our lads do get credit, so it's very difficult because we're in a bubble. But I think externally, I'm going to go with outside the Wrexham bubble, who maybe doesn't get the credit. I'm going to say Tom O'Connor because I think internally at Wrexham, yes, there's no one saying Tom O'Connor's rubbish. He's obviously brilliant and fabulous and has adapted well to the midfield change. But I just think when you see stories about Wrexham, it's a lot about Elliot Lee, deservedly so, and a lot about Paul Mullin. And when Ollie Palmer came in, he got a lot of attention. Ollie Palmer and James McLean gets a lot. I know he gets a lot of flack, but he gets a lot of praise as well, especially from all the other players. So I was between 2. I was between Tom O'Connor and Owen O'Connell, who again, Ben Tozer was out this week saying that he deserved to be benched in favour of Owen O'Connell, who was better than him.
Let's say
in the back in the
you
season.
got it right by the end. Yeah, I went Owen O'Connell. Just okay, last season as well, when he went to centre defence. That's when we hit our stride. That's when I thought we were at our best. So, yeah, if you want to read that in 442, it'll be out, I think, next month. There's 2 spoilers for you. Louis Barry and Owen O'Connell will get a mention, but there's about 20 questions I was asked. So if you want to read that, that'll be in 442. I'm sure we'll put on the socials and stuff when it's out anyway. And yeah, that's exciting. Nath, anything else you want to mention before we get on to fixtures?
Yes, so before we go on to the next segment, I did say that I would give a shout out to the Teach Me How to Wrexham pod because they are doing Summer of Giving, which is trying to benefit various Wrexham charities. And I think every week they are helping out a different charity. And I think this week, forgive me if this is wrong or it's changed by the time this is out, they were helping the food bank. So they're accepting bids on one of those white away shirts that's in its packaging, and we know how difficult it's been for people to get shirts over recent seasons. So bid generously on that. I'll put the link in the bio somewhere of Spotify and in the description of YouTube. But yeah, they're doing great things. And also, we shouted out a few weeks ago the James Jones fundraiser. That is approaching its 20,000 mark. We and many others we put a very small contribution in, but everyone's giving what they can, and it's great to see. And yeah, they're doing brilliant fundraising. So if you can, it's very difficult. I know there's all these different fundraisers and charity drives and everything, but trying to give prominence to those 2 this week in particular.
So, Nath, next week as well, we will have something guaranteed to talk about. EFL fixtures are on the horizon. I mean, it's customary to say in it. Which one are you looking forward to the most?
It's got to be Birmingham, hasn't it? That's going to be the one that gets all the attention. Probably gets moved for TV both times. And well, we might get moved to the dreaded slot that you're going to talk about shortly, but it'll get moved both times. I would say I can't. I've said this before. I can't come on here really and say I'm excited to go to Rotherham. Can I? Is that
Well,
doesn't seem right? That seems wrong to say. It doesn't seem
well,
to
that's another
come out right.
interesting point because another question 442 asked me was which game are you looking forward to the least next season? I'm not going to tell you what I put for that one. You'll have to
Right.
buy it to find out. But yeah, is it? I mean, Blackpool. Whenever we played Filed, that always seems to be a Tuesday night. I'd love a Blackpool weekender. That would be
Surely, Rich,
amazing.
surely Blackpool depends on when it lands. If it lands in early January on a Tuesday night, that is just not the same. It doesn't hit. That's what the kids would say. It doesn't hit the same. It
No, it's
doesn't.
not that.
It
So
doesn't.
you don't say inject it for Blackpool away on a Tuesday night,
No,
do you?
it
You want it on a sunny bank holiday or something over Easter
exactly
weekend, or
exactly. You want it. You want it on a decent slot where you can go have a real good time, but make a weekend of it. But there'll be some great ones. It's that for me. It's the one. I've done about 53 or 4, something like 53, 54 grounds in the 92. League One has been the one that's got the most holes in it for me. So hopefully, plenty of ground hopping. For me this season, there's plenty to get at.
back where we
Yeah, I'm
belong? It
excited.
feels well, doesn't it? Do you know what I mean League One does feel where
I've
we
got a
always
feeling as
say
well. I've got a feeling that we might be at home to Leighton Orient on the first game as well. I don't know why. That's just my pointless
I've got a
feeling.
feeling it's going to be another MK Dons esque home game where we'll play maybe Reading, the Phil Parkers and Derby or something to kickstart the season.
Right.
It's all just guesswork. We do have a few little bits on socials to go out about ahead of the fixture release as well, so keep your eyes peeled on them. RobRyanRed, like we said, that's next Wednesday, Nath, isn't it?
Next
So
Wednesday,
we
9
can talk
a.m.
about that on next week's podcast. So yeah, we'll bring you all the latest fixture news on that. One other element we want to discuss, though, are we say the reports, but it does believe to be true that next season there's going to be instances. We talk about the new TV deal, and of course, when the fixtures are released next week, we will know all of Wrexham's EFL TV fixtures up until Christmas, I believe, is it, or until the end of the year. So we will be able to properly plan our weekends, know where we're heading, what time we need to be there for. Hopefully, that all works as planned. But as part of the new TV deal, there could be some Thursday night fixtures in weeks where there are no midweek games. We understand that one, if not a couple, of the weekend matches will actually be brought forward to Thursday nights. Basically, so Sky Sports have something to show while TNT have Europa League football on. So to go head to head with, Man United and who else is in the Europa League? Tottenham next season? No, yeah,
I don't even. I feel like we should know this, but I
yeah,
don't know.
Tottenham
Tottenham.
must
I feel
be.
like
Yeah,
it's got to be. It's got to
to
be.
go to head with sort of United and Tottenham being in the Europa League next season, Sky Sports will be showing some EFL matches, whether that's Championship, League One, or League Two. Basically, it will be your weekend game. So Stockport, Reading, Charlton, Blackpool, they could all be playing on a Saturday, but Wrexham's weekend fixture could be that Thursday night instead. So I think that will disgruntle a lot of fans because that's got to be Sky Sports looking to go head to head with the European games where they can. It won't happen in weeks where there's already a midweek schedule. It will just be in those empty game weeks where they will try and bring a weekend game forward if they can. So next season, you can expect Thursday night football, Friday night football, Saturday early kickoffs, because again, that will go head to head with TNT's Premier League slot. Wouldn't expect much on a Sunday because Sky already have Super Sunday. Maybe during the international breaks, we'll see a lot of games scattered around a full weekend of fixtures. And again, Monday nights, Sky Sports already have Monday night football. So I think next season it will most likely be an occasional Thursday night, Friday night football, and early Saturdays. That's what I'm expecting, but we'll find out next week.
I've got in my head that is it the Mitchell and Webb show where David
Football,
Mitchell's got all the football, all the time, every day, every channel, football, wherever you look, football, or whatever the exact word that is, all the football, all the time, which always makes me laugh. It's just another. The game's basically eaten itself now in terms of the game. Football is completely dictated by the media companies and the rights holders now. It isn't about, okay, I've seen on Boxing Day, is it something like Southampton, Newcastle, maybe on Boxing Day in the Premier League? That's just a ridiculous journey to have to make. I don't know if that's exactly right. I
think it's Villa
check that.
Newcastle. I think that's the
Villa
longest
Newcastle.
distance one. That's still, everywhere's far from Newcastle is maybe the caveat to that.
But my point being that, Exeter, for example, in League One, that's the longest trip I would imagine for Wrexham. If Wrexham is put on a Thursday night, it's it's not about it's not about the fans, then, is it? It's about I don't know why that would be put on a Thursday night, but if it was for whatever reason, um, that would become nigh on impossible for people to get to. I know the club would put on supporter buses, and many would still make the trip because we're very well backed, and people would try all their might to get there. But again, that's a day off work. That's maybe a bit of annual leave, and it soon adds up over the course of the season. So, but what they would the retort to that would be that we're giving you a lot of money for this TV deal. We're paying you a lot more. You're getting a bigger slice of the pie, and with that slice of the pie, you can get a new contract for Max Cleworth, or you can get a new contract for Paul Mullen, or you can go and get Louis Barry, etc., etc. So you can't have it all. You can't have the cake and eat it, and get everything on at 3:00 and all get these amazing signings. I get there's trade-offs to be had, but Thursday night football, that seems a bridge too far. That seems slightly ridiculous, and we'll see. It might become a championship slot. I can't imagine Accrington Stanley against Grimsby Town on Thursday night prime billing on Sky, but who knows? Maybe Andy Holt will talk himself into a Thursday night slot. Maybe.
Yeah, well, whatever happens, we will have it all for you on next week's podcast. Like I said, it'll be out on Thursday, but we'll bring you all the fixture news the second it drops on Wednesday morning. That's 9 a.m. British summer time as well. So if you want to follow that and follow us on RobRyanRed as always. Again, a reminder for the competition, just subscribe to us on YouTube, RobRyanRed. If you're watching on the video, Nathan's holding the prize up right now. Comment below, talk to us about Stadium, Stephen Fletcher, the striker situation, Joe Morel, fixture news, whatever you want to talk about, message it in the comments, and we will try to get around to some of your emails as well in the coming weeks. So thank you very much, Nath. Football for a week then.
Football. I'm about to watch. I know people, by the time they listen to this, they'll already know what's happened, but I'm about to write about Croatia versus Albania. So, no Wales in this tournament, but Croatia, Albania, Euro fever. And I'm just desperate, mate. I'm desperate for a kit, for fixtures, for transfer, just anything, because soon enough we'll be in Vancouver. So, keep sending your recommendations as well. We've got lots of people that have already messaged us and are kindly helping us, aren't they, Rich, on our trip? And, we will try to be as hospitable in return. Can't promise it because you lot are a lot nicer than myself and Rich seems to be. But yeah, we really appreciate that. And, things are going to move along very, very quickly now. So the season is nearly upon us. We're going to know the games coming up. Rich has changed his background for anyone watching on the video this week, which looks a lot better.
A lot
than
more
mine.
effort, let me tell you that. I had to spin my desk around and everything.
A lot more effort, but it looks good. And yeah, I'm doing well, Rich. So enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll reconvene next week.
Yeah, you know how this ends now. Thank you very much to Red 10 People Development. Without you, there would be no podcast. Maybe that's reason enough to stop your sponsorship. And thank you very much to Hypnotic, the Wrexham-based band, who provide the music that stings for the show. Take care, and we'll see you again next time.
The Wrexham AFC podcast with Nathan Salt and Rich Faye.